Hi, in this video, I want to talk about increases. So when you have a pattern and they say make one, and they don't specify a specific way of making that extra stitch, well, I'm going to show you 7 different ways of doing, of increasing one stitch. So what I've done is I've done 4 repeats on one side and 4 repeats on the other side. So we can see whether it's more left leaning or right leaning, or how they look on either side if we're increasing on both sides, just to have a really good idea. What we'll do is we'll look at all the different ways of increasing first, and then I'll show you how to do them. So in the first set of increases, I've used yarn overs. So if I do a regular or open yarn over, we end up with an eyelet or a hole, as we can see here. So if I do it on the right side of my work, it looks pretty good. The stitches look like they're leaning in they're going straight. They're not leaning either right or left. And it's the same thing if I do it on the left side of my work. The stitches are going up, so it doesn't look like it's either leaning left or right. So the open yarn over is a technique that can be used on either side of the project. Then the other one I have here is a closed yarn over. I've done increases here and we don't really see them, except that we see here that I've added a stitch in these loops, or stitches that I've added, and that's called a closed yarn over. So it's the same thing. We come around, we do a yarn over, but when we're purling back, we're going to purl through the back loop, creating this twist. Whereas when we purl the yarn over and we want to keep it open, we purl through the front loop. So I've done the closed yarn over again on both sides. So I've got it on this side and again on this side. I don't find that it's leaning more either to the left or to the right. Although, no, I think it looks pretty even. Maybe a little bit more to the right. It looks cleaner on this side than it does on this side, but it still looks pretty good on both sides. So that's one way of doing an increase with yarn overs, either an open yarn over or a closed yarn over. Another very popular way of doing increases is knitting through the front loop. So knit front back through the front loop. Sorry, knit front back, not the front loop. Sorry, knit front back. So you can either knit front back, or you can purl, or you can knit back front. So either knit front back or knit back front, and I'll show you both. And what I've done here is, again, we can see the rows 1, 2, 3, 4. These first 4 I did knit front back on this side, and I did knit back front on these 4. And I found that if I kind of close this off, I found that the knit back front was more right leaning, like the stitches are going towards the right, and the knit front back was more towards the left. So in the next 4, I switched it, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and I did knit back front on this side and knit front back on this side, and it looks the same. It still looks more left leaning on the right side and right leaning on the left side. So I think it's just the way the stitches are done that it gives it that look. But I find it's a nice decorative increase. It gives you, like if you were doing a sweater all in one, it gives you kind of like a raglan sleeve edge or something. So it's a nice way of doing it if you have stitches on both sides without creating a hole like we did with the yarn over. Now, another technique is the back loop increase. So the back loop increase, you just you just create a loop and you knit into it when you come back on the next row. So here I did it on the right side, and here I did it on the left side of my knitting, just to see if there was a difference on how it looks. It appears like it's more holier on the right side than on the left side. But it's a good increase. It's still noticeable though. You can still notice it. So all of these increases we've done so far, the yarn over, the knit front back or back front, or the backward loop increase, you can see all the increases fairly obviously where we've done the increases. Then finally we get to the make one right and make one left, which are probably the most used forms of increases. And again, the first 4 rows, I did make one right on the bottom and make one left on the left side. And then I did make one left here and make one right here, just to see the difference. And you can see when I have a make one right, my strands of yarn are really making more of a right slant. And when I have a make one left, you see this strand going across like this? That's my make one left. That's going more towards the left. So if I do my make one right, it's a smoother transition towards the right. Whereas if I have make one left on the right side, it looks kind of choppier, not as smooth. And it's the same thing on my left side. Make one left, we can see these smooth strands going up, but the make one right on the left side just kind of makes it a little choppier, so it's not as smooth. So it does make a difference which way you want to do it. But if I had just kept all my rights on one side and all my lefts on the left, it's the least noticeable form of increase. So if you want to do a project and you have a nice elaborate design and you don't want it to be distracted by the increases, then you might want to use a make one right, make one left. Another important factor to note is that all of the increases, like make one right, make one left, the backward loop, or the yarn overs, all of those are stitches you create in the middle of stitches. However, the knit front back or the knit back front is created by using a stitch in itself. So for example, what I was doing here, I was knitting one, and then I was doing my knit front back. So I would do it here, and I would end up using this stitch to do it. So if the pattern, I wouldn't use a knit front back or knit back front in a pattern unless they ask for it, because you're consuming a stitch for the actual increase. So it will alter your stitch count. So if a pattern isn't specifying which make one stitch you need to do, you can decide between the make one right, make one left, the backward loop, or the yarn over, depending on what look you want to have on your finished product. But if they specify, then it's best to follow that. So now let me show you how to do all of those increases. So if I want to make my yarn over increase, I'm going to knit to when they say I need to do my yarn over. In this case, I'm just going to knit 2. And if it's my open or closed yarn over, it's the same technique. I just do a yarn over. I bring the yarn between the needles, wrap it around the right needle, and then I just knit. So I've just created an extra stitch with that yarn that's crossing over. So that yarn over, and it creates a hole, as we can see here. So I'm just going to knit one more stitch and do another yarn over so I can show you how to close it off when we come back on the other side. So this is my yarn over technique. Fairly simple, fairly straightforward, but again, it is a noticeable form of increasing stitches. The next one is the knit front back or the knit back front. So when you're going to knit front back, you go into the front of your stitch or the front leg, you knit it. You don't take it off your left needle and you come and you knit into the back loop. So out of that one stitch, I now have 2. So I've created an extra stitch. Let me show you the knit back front. The knit back front, I go into the back of the stitch, the back leg. I knit it. I bring it through. I don't take it off my needle. And now I knit the front. So we can see that they look, let me knit one so we can see better. We can see that they look exactly the same. Here's my knit front back. It's got a knit and a purl They look like a knit and a purl stitch. And I have the same results here. Have a knit and it looks like a purl, although it's a bit more hidden. Maybe I did it too tight, but it's a knit and a purl, and then a knit and a purl. So that's my knit front back, and that's my knit back front. Then the next one I have is the backward loop increase. So I'm just going to knit one. The backward loop increase, you can either wrap your yarn around this way if you're knitting, or if you, let me show you that again. I'm knitting here, I'm just going to bring it, twist it this way and come here. Or if I'm purling, I'm going to want to wrap it the other way so that it's coming out the front of my needle. You see how my yarn is coming out the front? If I'm purling, that's my loop increase. Let me show you that again. Oops. So knitting wise, I come here and I twist my yarn and I come here and my yarn comes out the back. And if I'm purling, I'm going to want to twist my yarn the other way so that my yarn comes out the front. You can also do these if you're knitting the German way. It's more easy to do it this way. So you can come and loop it across the back like this for the knitting. Or you can come, if you're in here, you can come and loop it across the front for the purling. Okay, I'm not purling, I'm knitting, so I'm just going to go ahead and loop it across for the knitting. And then you can just continue knitting. Now for the most popular ones, make one right and make one left. Now make one right the way I remember. Right starts with R, so I need to go in from the rear right. That's the way I remember it. Otherwise, I'm always thinking, how do you go in for the right? So if I'm doing a make one right, my left needle needs to come in from the rear and pick up a stitch from underneath here. So if I pick up this loop from the rear, from behind. So right rear, again, my left needle has to come from behind, from the rear side, and pick that loop up. And then I need to knit into the front of it. And that creates that loop. I've obviously done something wrong. Oh no, that's right. And then I continue knitting. Now if I want to make one left, and we can see it's got a twist that's going towards the right. If I want to make one left, I need to pick up this leg from the front as such. Sometimes it's hard to pick up that leg with the left needle. I can always pick it up with my right needle. Once I've picked it up, I still need to put my needle in from the front if I'm making one left. If I was making one right, I'd pick it up from the rear. But if I'm making one left, I pick it up from the front. If I pick up from the front, I need to knit in the back loop. And that creates a make one left, which is more left leaning. So again, I'll repeat. Make one right. I want to pick up from the rear. I can either use this needle to help me lift it and then I come in from the rear. So if I pick up from the rear, I need to knit in the front. I need to do the opposite and make one left. I pick up from the front and knit into the back. Why do I want to knit into the back? If I don't knit into the back and I just knit into the front, look and see what happens. I've just created an eyelet, which is fine if that's what you want to create. If you want to have a hole in your project and an eyelet, then you can go right ahead and do that. But you could also do a yarn over for that matter. So let's see what happens when we come back. What do we do with the yarn overs, like a closed yarn over? All the other stitches are going to be normal. There's going to be no difference. They're going to be regular stitches that present themselves on our needle, and we're just going to work them according to the pattern. Or if it's just all a wrong side row and we need to purl them all, we just purl them all. There's nothing special about them. So we can just purl right across for my little sample here. And then when I get to my yarn overs, that's where I'm going to have the difference. So here we go, getting to one right here. So let's say I know this is a yarn over because look how loose that is. In comparison to the stitch next to it, notice how there's a knot that's closing that off. This is a regular stitch. This is a yarn over. So if I want to have an open yarn over, I just come and purl through the front loop like I would normally. And it creates that nice loopy hole, right? But if I want to have a closed yarn over, I have to twist that stitch. So to twist it, instead of knitting through the front, I'm going to come and knit through the back loop. I'm coming and knitting, knitting that. Oh no, I have to purl because I'm purling. Sorry, purl. So I come in here and I purl through the back loop. And then I finish my row and I can with the stitches I need to do. And that is how we do all the different increases. This looks funny, but that is how we do all the different increases for us to be able to increase in our projects. I hope that was helpful.